So I'm going to be reading mostly from my new book, Last Call of the Dark, and then a few newer poems. My book is dedicated to the memory of Thomas Hubbard, who died in 2023. He was a longtime Seattle area poet who I think several people in this room probably knew. The poem I'm going to start with is called The Day Thomas Died. I climb a high ridge on the west slope of the mountains, watch spring fold back into itself with each step higher into scree. Hybrid trillium blooms in white and lavender. Fireweed curls back into fresh spring leaves. Then just a stalk. Maple leaves crawl back into their buds as water cascades down the far ridge from snowfields up above. A creek runs too deep and fast to reach our destination, and so we too turn back. My friend tells me of hiking on the coast, unable to reach tidal flats of snowy plover. Tell me, Thomas, do you migrate by the sea, or are you sleeping deep in winter at the peak? Hazel Catkin. I greeted the first spring-like day with exhaustion. No appreciation of a small portion of sun in gray mosaic and a stiff wind. I was tired. The retreating season offered no space for my small needs as the world iced over in suspicion and decent people passed away. I once fell in love over Hazel Catkin. Heads drawn together, breath quickened, we gazed into its bright red stiles instead of one another's animated faces. I don't need to recreate the love, but the fall, the descent into desire as the buds swell up, the body warms, and a blush reawakens into life. Cacophony, and this poem starts with a line from Deb Palmieri. We are always ashamed after the fact of these hysterias. This one will be no different. A bench of rough-hewn logs overlooks a shallow pond, ringed by reeds, cattails, spirea, and moss. A flock of geese squawk, flap, scutter, and scatter chaos through a cold, cacophonous afternoon. Were there an interlude of quiet, I would hear dulcet tones from the smallest of passerines, a bassoon of upstart frogs asserting their own space on a moldy, wood-rotted stage, the mother drum of woodpecker excavating dinner and a nest in a domesticated alder hollow, all anyone ever needs. I long for the glide of one humble bird, perhaps a white-feathered goldeneye, to trace a fine line on peaceful water. Tiger lily. Early summer under the shift of blue-gray sky, purple foxglove blooms beside ox-eye daisy, digitalis purpurea, which can make or break your heart. Do I straddle both sides of the cardiac fault, these roadside flowers more familiar now than tiger lilies wilding beside the Mohawk? How can one line in a book, the rhythm of one poem, evoke a lost summer when a volume of verse like the sight unbidden grasped everything on the cusp of change? As unsought as eternal love for an audacious black speckled orange flower against the steel blue drift of the river, bearing me away from a bitter, angry youth. I take the slow, steady pulse of dreams fulfilled. Infidelity. Seduced by a bouquet of lupin, I have taken a lover and declared my affection for wide open spaces. thrilled by the scarlet tubular throat of a speckled star-flowered skyrocket awaiting the tongue of a hummingbird. Naked in the face of Columbia lily, petals peeled back, primped and primed for a dusting of pollen, swooned by granite and gneiss, distracted by visions of volcanic eruptions from muscular columnar basalt, sparked by the spectrum of light in a crystalline sky, desire inflamed by the scents of artemisia and sage. This alien land will steal me away. But I will always come home to the close-held embrace of forest and moss, blanket of fog, and dinner of rain. Love in the intertidal zone. Blinded by sunlight, face cut by the wind, rime on my boots in a slackening tide, I exult in the garnet underside of a lion's mane jellyfish, Cyanea capillata, whose symmetry harmonizes and pleases like Victorian architecture. Built like an 8-sided platter, carnivorous, toxic, and thriving in cold-blooded Arctic, she's a dazzling, menacing ruby red beauty, a gelatinous defiance to rising extinction. Why do we treasure survivors less than the fragile who suffer tragic demise? Arachnids and echinoderms will inherit the earth, and with jellyfish, leave orcas, monarchs, and hominids behind. Gap of Dunlow, Killarney, County Kerry, Ireland. You would have loved it, darling, water roiling through the Gap of Dunlow, curtains plunge down ancient rocks, sheets of rain slapping in the mist. Bent sideways to the wind, a maelstrom whipped a lash and sting against our cheeks. Yet the burning red of mountain ash and hawthorn, flash of fuchsia and Montbretia, pierce the green and gray, the sheep serene. Exhilarated, our faces open toward the unrelenting storm. Drenched through our skins, soaked to the bone, ravenous for tea and scone. And dawn at the Bay of Pigs, Playa Calaton, Cuba. Dawn at La Bahia de Cochinos, the silhouette of a two-man skiff rises in a band of light, glides beyond the horizon. Roosters crow in every corner. Small dogs chase Wanabad Ayal, yellow-crowned night heron, waiting in the quiet bay. Feet sink into coarse sand, bathed by warm salt, in a rhythm of gentle waves. In an hour, horse-drawn carts laden with cabbage and papaya will clatter through the streets toward the open-air market. Small girls in red skirts, eyes shining, brown faces smiling, will chatter their way to school. Be careful, Norte Americano, Cotoro o Perico. There are Cuban parrots in the lost and found. All Saints' Day, Perugia, Italy. She scoops a large spoonful from a tub and hands me gorgonzola, ripe, smooth, rich, and pungent. I've just had a taste of cream pistachios and inhaled the aroma of fresh ground fennel, paprika, and anise. Rows of potted heather and chrysanthemum join the crowds in the center of Corso Venucci, and soon I encounter a vendor with wheels of lavender goat cheese and sample pesto and tomato flavors aged into the milk of sheep. Along Piazza Mattiati are bins of olives, cured meats, heaps of flavored biscuits, truffle sauce, and a multitude of sweets. Via Mazzini is reserved for chocolate. Any day in Italy is a day for celebration, but today is a holy day of obligation, so I buy the Gorgonzola. Consecration, Perugia, Italy. I climb to the top of the steps of the Cathedral of San Lorenzo and lean my back against the warm pink stone. Eyes closed, I take in the sounds of the 13th century fountain splashing gently in the large piazza. I hear a hum, a low-toned chanting near my ear. To my right, a large man, his back turned away from me, is offering response to a dedicated prayer. Then a moment sublime with satisfaction. Stepping down, I glance back at three men, two in black and white priestly garb, consecrating a large bag of chocolates. Time. It's not about the money, but the time. Set your clock and listen to the ticking, the hum, the buzz, everything that lets you know it's passing faster every day. You are hungry sooner and the sun goes down like rocks falling from the sky. You think the night is long, but it's not. Unless you dream, a hand reaches over, finds your fingers, and entwines itself in yours. But it's long too late for that. That chance has passed you over one more time. Morning comes, but there is only breakfast and the dream of riches left behind. Daybreak. At 4 o'clock, day breaks into pieces. Limbs crash down from thickened trunks. Scrub-covered hillsides slump into the pond. Crimson light streaks past the mountains. Raptors wing a tumult through the sky. Willows weep, and the moon declines to rise. Inside in darkness, I am shivered into shock, with a match that breaks each time it's struck, my supper cold, congealing on the stove. Writing letters to no one, waiting for an answer, speaking in a foreign tongue, all will fail. At 4 o'clock, my heart breaks into pieces. And footprints. The other shoe was lost, dropped in a meadow making love, a forest glade, a quiet sandy beach, stretched out on a blanket in the sun, so lost within ourselves in grasses tall and fragrant, we could barely hear the birds. But alas, no shoe was found to hike the way back home. Isn't that how it is with every love? One foot strides ahead, solid and secure, the other torn with cuts and scratches, limping through the rocks and brambles, red and cracked and bleeding some, hindering the long way back to where one ought to be. Is every love like our footprints in the sand, one shoe on and one shoe off, and when another day has passed, is washed away as if it never was? Thank you.
On the Guanajuato Writing Retreat website, there is a small link to somebody pronouncing the word Guanajuato over and over and over again so people can learn to practice it. It's not easy. So this book is about, or it came to be from roughly the year that I was living in Guanajuato, Mexico. And the shape of the book is in the stages of a journey. And so the first part of a journey for all of us who take them is you have to leave. You gotta walk out the door. You gotta go somewhere. The second part of a journey is the what you find along the way, the unexpected, the what you couldn't have found if you'd stayed home. The third part of the book is what I call those moments where it feels like you found something where you just belong perfectly. And it's a kind of coming home, even though it's not your home, but it is your home. And the last stage of any cycle is that you get ready to leave again. And so what I'm going to read tonight are a couple of the longer poems that I usually don't have time to read. And I know that some of you have been to some of these readings before, so you know some of the other stuff. So hopefully this will be some things that you haven't heard before. Mary Oliver's Grasshopper. This morning's visitor, a vivid, translucent green, balanced on the bright orange rim of my traveler's clock in my sun-darkened hands. Kahlo's palette, minus the black monkey, minus yellow and pink and blue flower bursts, minus her brown-black braids, even though we both pull our hair up in the hot Mexican afternoon. Mary's ate out of her hands, icing from her friend's birthday cake. Why else visit a poet if not for sweets and a cup of tea, maybe a stroll through shady trees? Few come to share verse. Having just moved to this hillside casita, my shelves were bare. He wrung his tarsi, perhaps stalling, giving me another chance to proffer a delicacy. I offered apology, my hands holding nothing but the moment. Two visitors poised precariously atop time, slowing to the pace of his unblinking eyes, nothing to bring to our mouths. A poetic moment, minus Portuguese cake, minus creamy nata and sugared lemon zest. Without sweet or salty, without something to celebrate, what remains is sour and bitter. Perhaps this is the true taste of time as it passes unnoticed until there is only metaphor, which this grasshopper left untouched. The dance. Thorns deter the fat squirrel, the striped stray cat that slinks into the yard through iron bars, the lizard that startles and jumps sideways. I too pull back from the urge to reach in, to pick flowers with ungloved hands. Sharp points keep out all but the hummingbird and the butterfly. Drunk with nectar from tiny white stigmas, they encircle one another in the bougainvillea's magenta bracts, dart from view when I approach. I stand at a distance, stare into the dry leaves, the spiky limbs. I peer through time with its concealed barbs to the moment this mountain was born, when life swam in the river and frogs jumped on its banks. We encircle each other, me and my memory of you, drunk on a love that bloomed liquid and lush before it evaporated, shed its leaves, grew long spikes that kept us out. To live is to set foot in brambles, to ramble the ridge low as sleeping frogs, to dance on cemetery graves right in front of death, who'll have to wait its turn to dance with me. I realized while I was reading that it might have been good to know that the name Guanajuato, the original indigenous name, which I will not pronounce, talks about that they're rolling, they're kind of halfway between mountains and hills. They're called cerros. And from a distance, with all the greenery that grows on them, they look like the backs of frogs. And so Guanajuato was named for the land of the sleeping frogs. This next poem, you're going to hear of some of the fauna, the creatures that I would see when I would be walking around. The night guides. Throughout the night, a parade of suitors came to take me home. The peacock unfurled its iridescent feathers. My long locks shine. I strut to captivate you. I make a sound you can't hear when I'm in heat. I can fly, but not far. The weight of my plumage keeps me close to the ground. My eyes stare into yours. The Xoloquintle shone silver in the moonlight. My pelt is delicate. I cannot be left in the sun. My ears alert. I remain loyal to one person. Quick to play, run, explore. I seek your embrace when I return. I am tempted to jump the fences you build to keep me safe. The jaguar, lean and stealthy, prowled the perimeter. I feel caged, pace back and forth, waiting for the moment to pounce. I am the hunter seeking prey. I don't belong to anyone. Leave after a few nights coupling. The road runner brought a food offering for our nocturnal journey. I run so fast in the high desert, chasing a ghost of dead love. They say monogamy is for cuckoos. I'm the crazy one linked to a mirage. The black spider monkey held out its tail. I swing from branch to branch, writing fantasy tales about a monkey who flies. I need others, chatting and preening all day. On my own, I can die of loneliness. The burro carried sacks of soft fabric. I've labored, followed others until we were lost. My back sways with the weight of frustrated dreams. I've stood silent, told I'm too dumb to understand. My voice sounds like a joke. No one takes notice. The grandfather beckoned with smiling eyes. He will welcome me without reproach. I thought we spoke the same language, that I knew all his stories. I strayed from hearth so long, his voice has a different timbre. I will never hear what was told in my absence. I could make my home in any of these lands. The home I've once lived in no longer entice. My tribe is the poets, dreamers, the night guides who wander in exile, belonging everywhere and nowhere. Okay. I am going to end with a narrative poem, and this is from that last section of the book where you've pretty much had the journey. It has done everything it needed to do to you, with you, at you, for you, pick a preposition. It's called Hillside Fire. My neighbors fed wooden furniture, appliance parts, bed frames, garbage, I'm not sure what else, into a makeshift fire pit. Their portion of hillside is filled with trash and junk all the way down to the roots of the tall and twisted pirul that blocks my view of the basilica. Brings birdsong and crickets, shades the terrace where I write. The next morning, thin black filaments hovered and settled, curved, more diaphanous than silk, covering the terrace. Broken and torn by the broom's bristles, I swept their black dust from terracotta tiles. Every morning since, I sweep remnants, ashes of judgment and condescension, all that remains of the fire. I collect them in the dustpan, which I empty over the wall, no doubt returning them to the exact spot from which they began, completing the cycle. The woman next door must shake her head with wonder at the crazy gringa who sweeps and sweeps, walks bags of trash to the city center bin every day, and never, not once, builds a fire. I remember the urge to burn all he'd left behind. Furniture, shot glasses, crutches, every present he'd given me, every happy family photo, the wedding ring, the bed, the mattress, the sheets, the pillows, the curtains, the towels, every surface that held us softly and guided us to rest, which now howled with emptiness. His books, those oh so precious books that apparently weren't precious enough to take, exactly right for fire, bulky and musty and used and heavy and boxed and boxed and boxed, so that it would take hours, sweat, time, the things precious to me, to do away with the unwanted detritus, to create the next chapter in how he comes to his next mate with nothing. I'd stoke the flames with broken promises and lies, insults and cold, rageful stares, though they never seemed to catch. These days, people talk about the before and after, a thick pandemic-sized line that separates then and now, past and from now on, what was and the new normal. For those of us with a broom and dustpan who spread ashes and cinders, return limestone and potassium to the soil, who have planted a tree in the coarse, gritty bone matter of a loved one's cremains, who have seen the forest fire or river of lava create the exact nutrients needed for new growth, who have burned all the trappings of one life to set forth on another, we know differently. There is no after that doesn't contain the before. I sweep this terrace on the most improbable of hillsides because one night boldness overtook cool inertia. I put everything in the pyre and waited, watched what burned, what smoldered, what glowed red with heat before charring, what burnt untransformed. Dreams, desires, purposes flickered brilliantly. Their remains and the still smoldering ground cover kept me warm when the mountain air cooled. I swept them up, planted them in a poem that began with a line about you and me and became a life about me. Here on the slope of the fire, we are all neighbors, our lives created from ashes. Thank you.
Party favors, split sonnets. Somewhere, a star is born. We'll know it eventually. Years from now, maybe orders of magnitude, orders we can't refuse, longer. Or someone will, or someone might, or someone could. What's good news, if not at least true enough to trust? Proof is just, a man is here to explain. Time flies, stuff happens, headlines pour on forth. Imagine one's hours to oneself, at one's apogee, to peak when that clarion call summons. Anyhow, today, the following scattered to turn over new leaves. Brands are people too. All lives matter. Never forget. And now, a lot of words from our sponsors. Here's an idea. Everything costs 20% less for women until we finally close the wage gap. The atmosphere gags on the power of prayer. Chew the fingernails of the hand that feeds you only with great care. History burps. Nobody listens. Participation trophies were made for this shit. Where's our party? Quick question. Would you rather break bread with some random Yahoo or a self-described empath? Take your time, or someone else will, regardless of the going rate for an arm and a leg. Here today, gone tonight, maybe. You never know what might yet go viral in the wet marketplace of ideas. Thank you. Doom. Foretold on scrolls so old they fall apart at the mere tremor of false premises. There's no going back. What has been said has been. Piling up, gathering momentum, More before more before more. Never mind everything no one said or even imagined. Last to arrive, get the most stuffed baggage. It's hard to hear over all the performers of reform slogans, let alone to calibrate. Everyone's hot take at hand, ready to run by one, even IRL. The culture chokes on memes, on beef. Nothing fits. A new line of argument, phrase in the whispers of who made it rain today. Coups will not debase us. A prince's kiss, unsolicited, elicits as wide a range of interpretation as the radio wavelength band. To be human is both to underestimate and overreact instinctively, given a proper contextual prodding. The pile of everything one's ever made fades, like fast. Okay, so low stakes, still our heirs. A pro athlete, a PhD linguist, and a mass shooting survivor walk into a bar. Thirsty swagger saturates the dim light. Small talk simmers, but all the punctuation dries up instantly. Feisty regulars take a long, slow sip, anticipating the punchline. Top shelf suspense sinks in a well of disappointment. Addicts who know overdose on the best medicine. And what better way to grieve when there's so much to grieve? If future generations condemn us all as incurably backward, take the W. All times borrowed. Ask any bird in a hurricane, any survivor. Look up. A rainbow flag flaps at half-mast. Spare a thought for all the wrong things in the wrong places, sure. Buxom tiger lilies cupping snowflakes, underwater hiccups, or a sudden spray of bullets in a moonlit public park. But hold the prayers. Just stop with that nonsense. The faux virtuous pearls and pork clutching, surly echoes lace an empty nest. To have left the building, to have receded so far it may be permanent, a dead man's grin ossified. Hall stones, fetch water, split sonnets, before and after enlightenment. That is, ever to have been becoming whatever one is becoming, still, as yet, to feel like one looks best expressionless. Be sorry for a hard heart, not for art. Most of what's composed will just compost, but who can know which humble crumbs will beat the odds? From birth gasp to dirt nap, there's always something only you observe. Reminders abound. Tune in. Almost every living human body has a penthouse view. It's understandable that folks might think man's best friend is dogma. Look around. Majorities whip, ranking members force loads down our throats. Dusty old poems will tell you each of us dies alone, grieves that way, aches, etc. But nah, it's a brave new world. Big tech bro is watching you. If you've never signed in with a false name as a visitor to the 9th floor psych ward at a major university hospital, How much do you really know about higher education? Ouch. Or falling in love with the wrong people. Inner monologues compete for the lead role in the tragedy of the common room. Okay, I'll show them yours if you show them mine, like an informal mutual amplification society or salon. Hey, there's no remorse in tasteful enabling, but patronize precisely. Respective perspectives that reflect well, co-propel. We all hunger for more community at the busy intersection of state and market. Is it bad form to skip the content warning before a cry for help? If you find yourself worth more dead than alive, go shopping. Draw down. Play Santa Claus like your life hangs in the balance. Grab a rag and polish the doubt out of your sterling credit score. That's my argument for reinstating Jubilee. Try to maintain some grace for what spills from a face for the printed word. Medium, message, who's counting? With patience, forgiveness, and trust, the giver wins. Some stadium groundskeeper's donated kidney churns out urine several states away. Fans, stands, and autographs litter the cheap seats. A coarse lay, or cosplay, or misplaced faith, whatever harmless buoy floats your will to live. Any portmanteau in a storm. A death wish will do fine. Larks patrol these waters. This one long now, co-executive produced by all the radiation swaying in the rearview light cone. Seize the deeming while you can. It's not every day you score a side hustle as a volunteer corpse, a dummy for a body washing class. People open up around even the pretend dead. We all learn something. Waves and spectra hurtle past and through from everywhere. Zoom in. Observe some graphic detail. Write like no one is reading. Discovering Emily Dickinson and Eazy-E in the same week stuck a 13-year-old high school freshman with an ecstatic double dose of lasting damage and an instructive hunger for synthesis. Always that and this. Some speakers convey in mysterious ways. Others of us are an open book, face down. Thank you. I do haiku too, and these poems are for sale. Some of them I burn by hand into thoughtfully chosen, beautiful pieces of wood. You'll see them displayed around the room tonight. For collectors or those looking for a really special gift, I have a catalog in the back that you can look back through, and/or I would love to talk commissions. I also have some framed prints and postcard packs with the postage already included, all of which display a somewhat distinctive style of haiku that I write and perform. So find me at the break or afterward. Come on by, grab your party favors, and ask me about wage gap pricing. So haiku. Whatever the specific rules of the form, and almost everyone insists that haiku cannot rhyme. I beg to differ. These poems tend to convey a moment in space-time, a single scene/feeling, animated in a single breath. And I only have time left to demonstrate with one. So here it is. Man with fewer teeth than the average blowjob ravages corncob. Thank you.
When the lava congeals, the city is empty of lonely men. Keep going. My 5-year-old had come from Sunday school when I met him to walk him to the car. As he stood there, I looked down and said, "I love you." He looked up at me. "Do you know how much?" I asked. He shook his head no, so I picked him up and pointed, arm extended, to the blue horizon. "Look out there and keep going, and keep going, and keep going, and don't ever stop. That's how much." "Wow," he said as he looked out and kept looking. "That's a lot." I set my young man down. He died suddenly, unexpectedly, alone at home at age 38. I took photos of him to the priest that I asked to celebrate his memorial mass. He said, "The prayers of a father availeth much." Taking this to heart, my prayers go out and keep going and don't ever stop till they reach the very God nearer than my breath. I carry my son in my frame, my bones, my gut. So I ask that his soul be in heaven with the Lord. Night space. Nothing to be seen as dusk comes falling, calling over all. In the glimmer of darkness, a hope approaches, promising rest and release from the cares of the day. A time of peace and solitude approaches, granting respite to the soul. A dog barks down the street. A lone walker passes by. A hush follows, providing space for this night to accomplish its end, restoration of the soul, rejuvenation of the mind. There is nothing to be seen as dusk comes calling, falling over all, onward its gentle flow.
Thank you
Now-
all. I have 2 poems. One was just recently published in Breathe, which is an online journal. Report from 2025. No way to encapsulate this period. No rhyme or reason can iron out our daily terror squashed deep in the gutter of our bellies. What makes it hard? There are no safeguards against a regime that lays waste to all we hold dear, a regime that doesn't give a flippin' shit for anything beyond accumulating wealth. The richest man in the world launches his porcupine quills to sting us all and fantasizes how one day he will vacation in Mars. Then I responded to a prompt which said, pick a very large word and use some smaller word within it and focus on that. So I picked the largest word I could think of, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and focused on the word fragile. Sometimes we forget how fragile the world is. Even century-old democracies bend under the hammer of know-it-alls. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt here. I should have said no nothings. A clown car assembled in a conference room of dummies. Puppets whose strings are pulled by a kingpin, a squeegee man who pretends to clean our windows only to have them smogged over, intent only on distraction.
I share all of those sentiments and more as we are in this ugly period of time. And looking back, I have three poems, but the first one, I decided to, rather than lash out, I needed to find some hope. And when was the last time I had hope and pride in our country? And it was a poem I wrote the day after the election in 2008. So come with me back in time following the election of Barack Obama. It's called Pride. Pride has finally replaced shame. 8 years of awful shame. And the flag has been recaptured by the agents of change, once again for all, waving with poignant significance in the brilliant morning sky, the morning after the night before, when the winds of change swept through the country with heretofore unknown intensity and pride. Pride. You can see it in the faces, you can hear it in the words, you can feel it in the air. You can touch it in time. You can understand it ever so clearly, ever so brightly. Delicious and delightful pride. This is called Watershed of Wonder. She crawls beneath the branches of the world that she used to know. A woman who understands the complexity of chaos, the exquisity of the orgasm, and the afterglow of pleasure. She lives deep in her head, alone in her body, alive in her lust, ever present, ever sensual, ever more and nothing less. In control, out of the main, she dissects the words and perceives the perky patterns that others will never see. No need to wonder. She spreads her silken wings, she spreads her wishes and wants. She dances with delight. She takes, as well as she gives, a watershed of wonder. And my final one is called Passing Time. Hard times break you down. True love builds you up, repairing the damage, strengthening the years with a certain kind of endurance, a certain kind of love. The early years, paved with tenuous times and uncertain circumstances, provide the building blocks of life and love all along the shoreline until the setting of the winter sun. Standing still, looking back, at a life well lived, at a love treasured in time, traveling swiftly at the speed of thought, paced by the beat of an aging heart that still believes in tomorrow.
It's Stacy. This is my latest poem, and it started out completely different. I get to live in Ireland part of the year, and I had read this great article about the 1985 phenomenon of the Wandering Virgin Mary statues. But you're going to have to wait for the Wandering Virgins, because I wrote the words 1985, and a completely different poem came out. And I had to tell my boys when I was reading this poem to them that the IRA are bombing London in the 80s. And the other background is the folk song Molly Bawn. Molly goes out in the evening light, dressed in white, to meet her lover, and he mistakes her for a swan with tragic consequences. This is called Airborne. In 1985, I boarded alone for college an airplane. A first ever at 21, an international flight, long. The earth fell right away from my feet, and for years I never quite landed. My astonished eyes watching the wandering London street punks in towering green mohawks, too stiff to nod, more metal in their faces than that whole floating jet. Before me still, the discovery of a shaved Sinead's fragile, exposed skull, of the saw doctors flickering candles in the dark, of the pogues waiting in the restless shops and around edgy street corners while I listened again and again to John Ferguson backroom sing Molly Bond on my precious, scratchy homemade cassette in his desolate, session-worn brogue. Over and over, her blood-soaked, treacherous white apron cradles her dying breast, with not a feather to be seen, and no hope of hearty stew to warm the hunter's growling belly. At lessons, I learn in Britain, the Queen owns every single swan, every floating feather, every eerie cry on every hissing river. And I wonder why she stays her hand to earthbound mollies, to hungry, despondent men, to the anguish of safety pins pushed through disenfranchised skin, to the many metal explosions repeatedly aimed at flying freedom, but falling so short into bloody scraps of white surrender and forever broken hearts.
The first poem here is part of the project, which many of you have probably heard of, to write poetry using as many words as you can that are on the list of words that the New York Times has created of those that have been expunged from government websites in the last couple of months. Pregnant people birth vulnerable populations. Picture these females, these pregnant people, biologically female at birth, their breasts gravid, making ready to breastfeed their impending offspring. A most appropriate response to the arrival of most every human after first breath, the nourishment of this vulnerable population. These tiny immigrants from internal lands of parental uteri. They suckle and they belong in the moment of eating, belong to the community, the diverse and vulnerable community of babies, pink and black and all colors assigned at birth. And earlier, they belong in the affirming care of their amniotic sacs. They emerge vulnerable, drink the clean energy of their mother's colostrum, and nestle in the allyship of their mother's embrace, where each acquires an unconscious bias in favor of their own mother's pheromonal signals, a prejudice the mothers reciprocate, a sensitivity accessible to each. Even blindfolded, most discriminate each other's scent. And I have this great new bookmark here. Starry nights. Begin with night sky above Sodium Lamp City, Ursa Major, Orion, Cassiopeia, Mars, Venus, Moon. You have seen what the artist saw. Between these, stars and planets of her own invention drip off her paintbrush. She loves the edge of science that touches chance, and the painting was never to be a chart for sailors. Infer what spaceships find. Sketch these horse heads and spider webs, these tufted and tentacled bodies. On watercolor paper, like fireworks, wet drops of gold and green radiate. A volcano in her imaginary galaxy erupts. Lava spews bloody rocks across a black expanse. Now you have seen what the artist dreamed. Now you dream. Now you see.
So I'm going to read one poem from my book that came out not even a year ago in June of 2024, Slow Now with Clear Skies. And I'll go with the Northwest, one of the Northwestish poems. New Age Wonder. Make a ritual. Gems heal. Find a petrified tree, a quartz crystal in a creek. Reminders of wonder and belief. Life force spirals. Find solace in water, in stone, in gentle rainfall. Breathe peccator, released from earth. Touch a moss-laden nurse log. Feel the pulse of the moon, the rising of the sun. Star glitter in the sky. Elemental, essential. A world your body understands. And then I'll read one that's relatively new. I've read it once. I read it the day after I wrote it. So I'll try it again. To Stay Here in This World. And it's after Carrie Fountain's poem, You Belong to the World, that was recently in the New Yorker. To stay here in this world grounded, no matter who rules. To be simple with plants, the trees, to stand for what must be preserved. This land, its mountains, its valleys, its villages that sustain through time despite our comings, our goings, our losses, part of the whole. Our breath, our bacteria, our mitochondria ticking, making life computers cannot erase. Unfolding wells of passion to fall in love, a chemical bath, to learn our rights, our undeniable life, our truth. Not a stain, but an actuality, an imprint, a joy. To spot an owl perched on a roof at night, to know we came through a cycle. Animal, mammal, fish, bird, we evolved. A science stream we can feel in our biological cells. Our rights lie within a chain reaction, steps, progression, decomposition. This soil we walk on alive. Our microorganisms play a role beyond comprehension. Our DNA messages one being to another. It never stops. A butterfly flutters, and the earth holds its energetic pattern. Inside our cells we carry memories. We foment, we rest, we stay. Thank you.
This first one I wrote when I was 17, a long time ago. It's about getting over my first love. And in addition to being short, most of my poems are untitled. Vague elephantine cloud, obstructing lucid lucky stars, wash away mine affliction and cast off thy shadow. Fulfill thy obligation, then fall obsolete. Remove this fake tangibility, wash it away. Softly awaken me with the pitter-pat pattern of mine dreams. Lavishly cleanse this bleakness, water down this overbearing sustenance. Mine heart as the sky rinses of the gray torpor. So, finally, thankfully, comes the rain. And this next one is about transformation. Spreading from wing to fin, this chrysalis is set ablaze, thundering forth with such agility, perhaps none will even recognize. Transforming vibrant into the ether, flowering at the most suitable tempo. Tick-tock, flutter, flap, flicker, this genesis bursting forth, like a northern lit sky full of falling stars. Moonstruck ideas become a luminous purple truth, sparkling and shifting so completely that this very quintessence bids farewell and flies away. And this next one is probably not a very common opinion. I'm different than most, I hate spring. I'm autumn and winter girl, and I know this time of year everyone is very happy, and for me, it's a hard time. I have reverse seasonal affective disorder, so this is my depressive time. So this probably won't be a very popular opinion, but go ahead and read that. Eyes open abruptly, and dawn floods our reality, charging in like a bull, harsh and jolting. The earth awakens and all rejoice, accepting this spirit of the harvest, squelched by the vernal impudence. There is bliss in the slumber, perfection in the mystery, brilliance in the haze, dancing alone in the clouds, feasting upon nightfall and shadow, singing sweetly beneath the veil. It is autumn that drifts in with the grace and majesty of a butterfly, a falling leaf, a placid golden whisper, artfully advancing in without breaking anything. And I'll just do one more. This last one I didn't write as a poem. It's a song. I'm a singer and a voice teacher. Singing is my first love. Poetry is my second. But I wrote this during the first nightmare, and now we're right back where we started, unfortunately. Actually, we're even worse off than before. So I think it's exceptionally relevant. I'll be actually performing this song with my band next week. So, yeah. This is Relentless. Bound by patriarchy, by a mindless, monstrous magnate, we the people punished, as this power designates. A nation of ruin, restrained and desecrated, young and old impoverished, enslaved and decimated. The democracy has no safe word. Persistence of resistance. This relentless sentence drags on and on and on. My repentless sentience, obstinate until it's gone. The democracy has no safe word. Defy, defend, dissent. Declare a revolution. Rebel, resign, refuse. Take part in a resolution. This relentless sentence drags on and on and on. My repentless sentience, obstinate until it's gone. The democracy has no safe word. Persistence of resistance. Thank you.
So I have never, ever been to an event like this, which makes me a virgin. Can I just talk really loud? Is that okay? All right. I'm here because I have a very appropriate crush on Brasswax. This is a poem that I did not write, but I had to memorize in 8th grade 60 years ago for a speech contest, and Catholic school, I won. But I got second place because Joanne's parents gave lots of money to the school. I swear to God. Anyway, this will be a little palate cleanser. I have this just in case. Oh, shit. It disappeared. Kenny. Let's see. I can do it. I think I can say it. Okay, I'm going to try. I had it pulled up in case I forgot a word.
You memorized it 60 years ago. Come on.
Should not be a problem. Yes. Okay, this is called Jim, and it's by Hilaire Belloc. He was a French guy. I think there's a moral in this. We'll see. There was a boy. His name was Jim. His friends were very good to him. They gave him tea, cakes, and jam, and slices of delicious ham, and chocolate with pink inside. bicycles to ride and read him stories through and through, and even took him to the zoo. But there it was. The dreadful fate befell him, which I now relate. You know, at least you ought to know. For I've often told you so, that children never are allowed to leave their nurses in a crowd. Now this was Jim's especial foible. He ran away when he was able. And on this inauspicious day, he slipped his hand and ran away. He hadn't gone a yard when bang, with open jaws, a lion sprang and hungrily began to eat the boy, beginning at his feet. Now, just imagine how it feels when first your toes and then your heels, and then by gradual degrees your shins, your ankles, calves, and knees are slowly eaten, bit by bit. No wonder Jim detested it. No wonder that he shouted, "Hi!" The honest keeper heard his cry. Though very fat, he almost ran to help the little gentleman. "Ponto!" he ordered as he came, for Ponto was the lion's name. "Ponto!" he cried with angry frown. "Down, sir! Let go, sir! Put it down!" The lion made a sudden stop and let the dainty morsel drop, then slunk, reluctant, to his cage, snarling with disappointed rage. Oh, shit.
That's why you got second.
But when he bent him over Jim, the honest keeper's eyes were dim. The lion, having reached his head, the miserable boy was dead. When nurse informed his parents, they were more concerned than I can say. His mother, as she dried her eyes, said, "Well, it gives me no surprise he would not do as he was told." His father, who was self-controlled, bade all the children round attend to James's miserable end, and always keep a hold of nurse, for fear of finding something worse.
Well, that last particular poem that you read will probably not be on the video because you weren't even in the picture. In other words, you had to be here.